Hi, everyone. My name's Jen with Sloat Garden Center. Welcome to our fourth class in our summer spotlight series and our fifth Wednesday evening webinar. I'm just going to talk for a little bit while people are logging on. I'm really excited to have garden photographer Rod Milstead with us tonight. Rod is actually a personal friend of mine, and this is really fun for me. I've actually seen his photography go from taking pictures of our kids at T-ball to really expanding into this incredible nature scape, with like drones and macro and iPhone and whatnot. Definitely check out his Instagram at RPM Teacher to see the scope of his work, and you'll see his talent is pretty incredible. And also, he's been a teacher for over 20 years. So this is kind of a fun merging of worlds. And I'm really happy to have him here. I do want to talk about a couple of our upcoming classes. So our next class in our Summer Spotlight series is Lemon Berry Scones, and that will be August 18th at 5 p.m. with Lysandra Wilson from Yellow Cake Desserts. If you haven't joined us before for our Spotlight series, this is a way that we thought it would be fun over the summer to really connect with local businesses and highlight local businesses and artists, and really have fun with the garden, see how people are using different resources in the garden. And I've had a blast. And so I hope that you have enjoyed it as well. So anyway, Lemon Berry Scones will be August 18th. And then we're going to dive into kind of the nitty gritty gardening stuff, because we'll be going into fall almost at that point, which is crazy. So we have a Preparing Your Fall Edible Garden class on August 21st at 10 a.m. And then I'm working on, and it's almost going to be up. I know I want to get more up on the website, but I'm working on a ton of fun classes for fall. And so keep a lookout on our website. We will be sending it out via email too, and that should hopefully be up in the next week or so. And okay, so Rod, I know, has a ton of fun stuff to share, so I want to stop talking. Oh, if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them into the Q&A, and I will help filter them. And then also, I think Rod will mention this too, but a lot of the plants that he's going to be planting, if you do want to know the name of it, I'm here to help with that part. And so you can put that into the Q&A. But this should be a lot of fun. He's got a lot of fun things planned, so I'm looking forward to it. Thanks so much for joining us. Take it away, Rod.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for being here. And of course, there's the Sloat logo. So I got to start off by thanking Sloat and Jenny. And if it hadn't been way back for T-ball, I would not be here with all of you. I also want to say, of course, well, thank you all for being here. But more importantly than all of you, hi, Mom. And hi, Kirsten. Thank you for being here as well. It's super exciting that everyone is here. My plan is this, friends. We've got an hour of quality time on Zoom, and I know that you love that. So I'm going to be doing some talking, some slideshows. We'll take a look at some pictures, but I'm also going to do some live photography, and you'll see the view through my phone of what I'm taking. So it'll be one of those like, hey, here's a cool composition. I'll also do some editing live on the phone. All of this sounds really good until the internet has a moment. No, it's going to be great. There was a survey that went out in your reminder. If you feel like jumping in and filling out the survey, it's really questions about what do you want to know and get from this class. Those of you that have responded, appreciate it, super helpful. So let me begin with the customary, as always, gotta have a slideshow, right? That's the sign of any good Zoom. So there we are. We're talking smartphone garden photography. My name is Rod Milstead. There's my email address. You can find me on Instagram at RPM Teacher. A bit about me. I started in 8th grade. No, I'm not going to do that. Just kidding. All the photos that are in this were shot on an iPhone 12 Pro Max, except for one that I gently borrowed from the internet. And you'll see that one shortly. So that's it. We're going to jump right into it. Any photography teacher is going to start early talking about rule of thirds. And so I'm going to start like right away, like right away, because I got some questions about composition guidelines and how to take great pictures. Of course, that's part of why you're here. So there's your picture of rule of thirds. What rule of thirds means, friends, is if you take a look at this handy diagram, and this is the picture that I gently borrowed from the internet, right? And if you look, there's going to be areas where these lines intersect. That is a really cool place to put your subject. A lot of us, me included, will often put the subject dead center. But the way the human eye and brain react to images, if you haven't already enjoyed rule of thirds, you're going to really love it now, because you'll start to notice so many images that really resonate with you are going to be related to, oh, those are rule of thirds. There is a way on most phones. We've got a lot of iPhone users. We've got some Android friends as well. And in both cases, if you're comfortable with it and it doesn't drive you crazy, you can turn these guidelines on through settings and going to photo on an iPhone. And then you can turn the grid lines on, which is really helpful, because then you always have these rules of thirds right where you want them. So I like to leave them on all the time. It really does help guide me. All right. I told you we were going to be taking pictures, and I'm going to do it right now. While I'm setting up my phone to cooperate, what I'm going to say to you is this. You all have a camera now, right? It's in your phone. We know that. So you always have it with you to enjoy. And you know that too. One of the things I find with a lot of my students that's kind of fascinating to me is how many of them, it's not you, it's all the other classes, right? But how many are very reluctant to take lots of pictures. And I'm always like, why aren't you taking lots of pictures? Because we don't have to worry about film anymore. And for those of us of a certain age, you know what I'm talking about. But otherwise, friends, take extra pictures. It's funny to me how people will go and be like, okay, let's go out to the garden, let's take some pictures, and they'll come back with 3. And I'm thinking, are you worried about, anyhow, you see my point. So let's stop looking at my children and we'll talk a little more rule of thirds. Okay, so here's our garden decoration, Bob Ross, right? And I mean, if I go, you can see my grid lines, right? If I take a picture of Bob like that, it feels kind of imbalanced. There's all this somewhat negative space over here. And by negative, I don't mean grumpy, but it's not filled with something that's in the mid or foreground. However, if we just take Bob over here, right? And of course, I have the advantage of rearranging my garden pretty easily, a little harder on lawn. But see, now I've got Bob, he's lined up on one of the third lines. And so there's Bob centered. There's Bob in a happy little tree where he's more off to one side, but he's still the subject of our enjoyable work here today. It is all about Bob, but it became more balanced. Side bonus to this image, and I sort of intended this, I'm not going to lie, but can we see, like, okay, look for repeating themes. So here we've got Bob, and then we have this cactus that's kind of shaped like Bob, right? Those two go really nicely next to each other. That deserves one more picture of Bob and the cactus. So when I'm talking about rule of thirds, that's a big one right there as far as composition. Another one that I really would like you to apply would be think about what's in the foreground background. So imagine if we were out in a meadow, in a field, right? And you're shooting a picture, and in this case, Bob is going to be the tree. Okay, Bob, that's appropriate. It would be nice if I had some interesting foreground. Like I wouldn't want to shoot like this and just have empty space in the front. So I might want to tighten up like that to get a shot where Bob, or the tree in this case, is the focus. But the other thing you've got to watch out for, and you're going to see this as we take pictures today, is if I had something that was super in the foreground, right? This can start to get kind of distracting. It's even more the case if it's little blades of grass that are poking up. Because yes, I know some of you are thinking, well, I could always Photoshop that out later. I don't know about you, but that seems like a lot of work. Just rearrange your shot so the blade of grass is not going to be in your way and not sitting there awkwardly in the foreground. All right, let's go back and enjoy some more presentation here, friends. Jenny, let me know if anything pops up in chat.
Okay.
That's exciting. Friends, feel free to put things into Q&A. Like we said, we would love to hear from you. And I'm going to get back to my presentation right now. As soon as Zoom feels like that would be a nice thing for me to do. All right. Cool. All right. The other thing I see often, and we're all guilty of this, right? You go up to take pictures of something, and in this case, this is not a slope. I want to be clear. This is not a slope landscaping project, but it is some landscaping I enjoyed recently in between basketball games at San Marin High School. So I could take this picture and be like, yay, I took a picture. But our habit is to shoot from this angle. So this is me standing up, taking a picture, and then walking away, and that's it. Instead, what I'd really like you to do is to get closer, change your angles, change your viewpoint. You know, one of the joys of having a smartphone is that it's not big, it's pretty flat. These two shots I had here, I shot blind. I'm not going to lie to you, friends. I didn't sit there and apply my rule of thirds. I broke the rules already, I suppose, because I slid the phone underneath the plants and blindly pushed the volume button a whole bunch, hoping I would get an interesting shot. So we have the advantage of getting away from this angle and going to that angle. And my hope here was that I would get that there were bees buzzing all over the place. And I was hoping that I would get a bee in one of the shots. And so I lucked out and did it, which circles back to what we said about 4 minutes ago. Take lots of pictures. I took an excess number of pictures in order to get one where the bee was there. I didn't see the bee because I had my phone like flat like that, but I still got the shot. So change your angle, get higher and shoot down, get really low like I did here, literally a bug's eye view, if you will. So treat yourself to the flexibility that your smartphone gives you that you might not with a larger camera. So a little bit more about changing angles. I really went wild with this composition, and I turned my phone from landscape to portrait. So we tend to get pretty attached to, especially with phones, holding them in portrait orientation. But what I'd love is if people keep going to both angles, right? Because you can. Now, I did get questions about how to optimize for social media. And one of the big social media platforms out there for photography, despite what Instagram may say, is Instagram. Instagram defaults to a square format. So you can always crop down to a square format if you want. But I like to shoot in the either portrait or landscape and then crop it down myself instead of changing it or shooting through the Instagram app. It's your call, but I feel like the flexibility of being able to go portrait or landscape versus square matters a lot to me. All right, so we talked about changing your angle, getting higher, getting lower. That's pretty much going to dovetail with also get closer, right? So here's my opening shot, but it became a lot more interesting, I hope, and you tell me if I was getting closer to the subject. Sometimes that means use your body as the zoom. Use your feet, friends. Get lower, get closer. If your camera offers different lens options, then start using them. So as you look across these three images from left to right, you'll see how I progressively got closer. In this case, I didn't move my body. I'm not going to lie to you again, but I did switch on my iPhone from wide angle to normal to the zoom. And so by doing that, you're going to find compositions start to pop out at you. And I think for the purposes of garden and plant photography, pretty much we're going to trend to getting closer. Am I right? If you look at the object on, or if you look at the image on the far right, and watch this. Jenny, what kind of plant is that? Oh, see, she didn't expect that.
It looks like a calendula.
Yes, she's right. It's a calendula. I didn't know that at all. It's yellow though. But anyhow, if you look at that, then I put the dominant yellow flower sort of within our rule of thirds action. And I also used the grid that was in place with that chicken wire as part of my overall framing of the image. So that's the fun part too. We tend to focus on what's the subject, right? I'm looking at the flower specifically. But instead, what I'd like you to do is don't forget what the background is. Don't forget what the foreground is. Use those to your advantage, and also pay attention to them so that maybe you give yourself a little bit of a break. If you see there's something in the composition that's distracting, keep an eye on that background and foreground as well. I am going to switch gears again back to taking pictures on my telephone. And one of the features of Zoom is that I need to set this up each time. So if you work at Zoom, could you pass a little feedback to the folks there that we need to streamline this just a teeny bit? It's not a complaint, it's an observation. All right, and yes, there's my computer. So let's see, I have a lovely array of plants here from our friends at Sloat that Jenny picked out for me, which is super cool. And I also will take a walk outside. We'll take a field trip in a second. This is the best kind of field trip because there is no paperwork needed. Okay, so let's see, let's take a look and see what we could get. So I'm gonna enjoy, Jenny, what's this one?
Locust.
It's a locust. Again, she got it right. She's 2 for 2. We're exactly right. So if I look at this, right, and these really beautiful purple flowers, I'm looking at my grid line. I'm looking at my rule of thirds. I'm not going to take the picture way back here, right? I want to get to the spirit of the locust. Let's get closer. So there it is with my 1:1 lens. I talked about the value of changing lenses. You have that option. I'm going to switch to the wide angle. The wide angle is always interesting because you can sometimes get some distortion that might make you happy, and it might not. But let's take the picture anyhow because it doesn't cost anything. There's no film, friends. For those of you of a certain age like me, there's no film. Just take the picture. Okay, now let's zoom in. Whoa, that was quite the zoom.
That That's a jacaranda. I said the wrong name, so I messed up.
Okay,
Darn it.
we'll be scrubbing that from the recording that will be available later. But that was actually my fault. I told her what plan it was. Blame me.
Thank you for those checking me on the plan.
Oh my God, did they, you're a tough audience, people.
I know, but I love it.
Right. Okay. So one interesting thing happens when you use a zoom lens, if you have the option, and this is true on a phone as well as with DSLR. When you use a zoom, then it starts to what we call compress the background. So it makes it feel like things in the background are closer and that they're more or less on one plane, vertical plane. I'm getting a little geometry going here. Vertical plane, right? Which is kind of cool to have that option as well. So use that zoom lens to your advantage. If you have the portrait mode available on your phone or something similar, let's live big and switch to portrait and see how that treats us. So I'm in portrait mode and I'm zoomed in. And what portrait mode is designed to do is to isolate a person from the background. But this is a plant. And it can still give you some really cool effects because in isolating, what it's doing is it is actually blurring part of the background. And hopefully you can see that and you probably experienced that thrill for yourself. Now, what you can do on some phones, and newer iPhones have this option, is to change the amount of blur you're getting in the background while you're taking the picture. So I'm going to look in the top left corner when I'm here on landscape. There's a cursive F in a circle. I'm going to tap that until it cooperates. Okay, and now I have a slider and I can change how much blur I want to have. So it's measured in f-stop. I promise not to get too technical, but you're wondering, why does it have an F? Well, it's an f-stop. This is also known as aperture. So watch as I move that slider. If the number gets bigger, it becomes less blurry. So this is a really cool way to isolate your subject from a tricky background. So if I were shooting this picture in, I don't know, for example, an office, and maybe I want to blur out some of the office-y looking background, right? I'm just going to dial in some blur here and take the picture. And we've got nice focus on some of our flowers. We can still see that there's vegetation, but you can't see that there is necessarily an office back there. So portrait, friends, is for more than taking pictures of people. Let's not leave out the plants from this magic. All right? All right. How's everybody doing? Anything coming in Q&A that I get to see?
Not yet, but I do want to say I didn't even know that was possible on the camera. So that's a fun thing I've already learned.
See that? I'm done early. No, I'm not done early, but that's cool. Thank you. I appreciate the feedback that there is something else. I'm going to take a walk outside, and what I'm going to do, you probably won't have good audio, so I'm going to be sort of quick, but I want you to watch how I approach this lovely planting, courtesy of Sloat Garden Center, that's outside, and it's a little bit backlit right now. So I want to shoot that in a couple different ways, and then we'll come back and take the pictures, but I want you to have the joy of watching me do it, plus I need to take a walk. Okay, here we go.
Rod, really quick, how do you get to the f-stop again?
Oh, let's do that again. Thanks for asking. So I'm going to switch to portrait mode. Okay, and if you look in the top left corner of my phone, there's a little kind of pill-shaped thing that says F, and in my case, it has a 4.0. Class, can you see that?
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm going to touch that button, and then on the right side, just next to the circle that I used to take the picture, right, to that virtual button. Can you all see the slider that I'm moving? And it says F3.5, F4, F5, F8. I'm hoping you're seeing this. So as I move that slider, that is adjusting the blurriness, which is kind of cool. You know, and I should add here, there's an old adage in photography that predates smartphones by a lot of years. If you look at mine right now, I'm going to turn this back to portrait, so maybe it's easier to see. And let me even do a little drawing just to be more clear. You all are wonderful. While I do my little drawing here. See right there where it says F8, F8.0. Remember it this way, friends. F8 is great, meaning when in doubt, move that slider so until this number is 8.0, and often that gives you a really nice compromise between blurriness and sharpness of the background. So, and that's true on a DSLR as well. If you can adjust the f-stop, also known as the aperture, F8 is great. Okay, get myself back into landscape mode. We're going to take a quick walk outside. There's a picture of Bob Ross again. Take another picture of Bob. Okay, and I'm going to switch myself out of portrait mode back to regular photo. I will be back. You're coming with me, but you won't be able to hear me. So Jenny, you can talk about all the plants we've looked at so far.
Okay. This is my office, y'all. So it's neat to see it in a different way too. And that's Amanda Villa. That's outside. It's Divine. And we still have pretty good light outside right now. Yep.
Okay. You know what's funny is the plant I was going to use moved.
It moved.
It moved. I think someone bought it, which is actually pretty cool, right? So let's take a look at, so this plant, same plant, not exactly the same flower, but let's pretend, right? So in this one, I shot it so it was nicely backlit. Usually with people, right, we've been taught avoid having the sun behind someone because it will put them in a partial or full silhouette. And that's kind of difficult to see because most people don't have a translucent quality like flower petals might. So with flower petals though, we were able to get some nice translucency by backlighting, but if I just walked around the plant to the other side and I didn't manage to put my shadow onto the flower, then we've got really nice full sun to work with. So this goes back to what I said at the beginning, change your position, change your angle. I just took part of my 10,000 steps, walked around to the other side of the plant, two totally different pictures, and both with a little editing might make me kind of happy. Now this one, this particular picture makes me want to talk about lighting a little bit. This is in direct sunlight. The sun is at an angle where it's getting a little towards sunset. So we were starting to get some sun that was hitting the face of this flower beautifully. But it's also a bright white petal. And so we've lost a lot of detail in there. What's fun about garden and plant photography is that you can really, sometimes your photography can really benefit from a day where you don't have any indirect sun, when it is cloudy, when it is foggy. And if you can go out and shoot this same plant, but in that foggy, diffuse, misty light, then what you're going to find is you might see some more detail coming out of the white petals. And you also might find that that green in the background is popping a little bit more. You also lose the shadows that would be obscuring some of the detail, right, of the shot itself. All this shadow down here, if it was a foggy day here in Mill Valley, we wouldn't have that. So we would have some indirect light. Some people call this, using a photography term, they call this nature's softbox. And what that means, a softbox is something that a portrait photographer will put around a light to diffuse that light. Well, if you have clouds, you just got nature's softbox and you didn't have to carry it with you. So consider that if you are all excited to do some photography and you happen to have a plant nearby, and let's hope you do, then if it's a cloudy day, don't let that dissuade you. That's a great time to get out there and take some photos. It's especially a great time to take pictures. Watch this segue. Let's hope I can pull this off, right? It's an especially wonderful time to take pictures of macro photography. So see, I was talking about lighting and then I was like, and let's talk about doing macro photography with your smartphone. So these were all shot using a macro lens that was an accessory to my phone. And I don't like to tell people like, oh, the only way for you to take good pictures is for you to go and buy more stuff. So before I even get further into showing you the lens, I also want you to think about using, if you have a zoom lens that's built into your camera, or into your phone, use that to just zoom in a little bit and then use that portrait mode to blur the background. But in this case, I bought myself a little lens. I mean, I could say I bought this to share with you all, but I'm keeping it. So this was 43 bucks on Amazon. I will, if I remember, I'll put a link in chat so that we can enjoy, so that you can find some of these things that I talk about buying. This is one of the few products that I'll say might extend it and make it more fun for you. So this is a plastic clip, right? The lens is a little, it's probably the size of a $50 for those of us who have experienced a $50. And the way it works, friends, is I am just going to clamp it right over the lens like that. And yay, I'm ready for macro photography. Now, this was a $43 lens, so we have to be realistic about our expectations. Because if you're using a DSLR, you could easily spend $800, $1,000 on a DSLR level macro lens. This is a lens that's on a plastic clip. So let's be realistic about our expectations. And what I like to use is actually some of the weird visual effects that I might get from this. I'm going to use them to my advantage. So let me get set up with screen sharing once again, and sharing from my phone.
Is that just one solid lens?
So great question. So this is show and tell here. So here's the lens. The way it comes from this particular manufacturer, it has a threaded wide angle lens that threads on top. So if your if your phone doesn't already have a wide angle lens, then you thread that on. To get to the macro, the wide angle comes off, and this is all you need. It did come with actually a kind of a nice bonus too. Brace yourselves, friends. We were talking about controlling the lighting, right? It came with this little USB rechargeable ring light, which sure, I'll use that. We're going to play with it in just a second. It's also on, big surprise, another clip. Somebody likes to put clips on things. That's all I can say about that. So let me get us back to phone sharing here. and screen sharing. And yeah, that's just, so it's really a combination lens. For those of you that have used other kinds of lenses, again, I want to be clear, I don't want to set you up for any surprises. This is not miraculous optical quality. It's a $43 lens. It is glass, and I bring that up because that is preferred over plastic. Plastic lenses are lighter, they're less expensive, which is a bonus, but they also do scratch really easily. So just keep that in mind. Let me stop my share for just a second here. My phone has decided to have a moment for us, which is not unusual. So while I fiddle with that, let me go back to my other share. And Jenny, any more questions coming in?
Yeah, a couple of things.
Let's do it.
Is a softbox like a ring light?
So, you know what? Great question. This little gem is more like a ring light in a way. A ring light that our caller has mentioned, and thank you for that. A ring light is really, some of you may have one and use them for your Zoom work over the past year and a half. A ring light is literally a circle of LED lights. And in some cases, you can put your camera right in the middle of that circle so that then you're getting nice, even light on you. Macro photographers, which is what we're going to talk about now, if they're using some kind of external light, like a flash on it, they will also diffuse that light. And by diffuse, I mean soften that light, sometimes simply by taking a thin cloth, like a white handkerchief, and rubber banding it around the flash, if you have that opportunity. Because softer light for close-up work is sometimes better than if you have a really harsh direct light, because the harsh direct light will just illuminate one part and give you a lot of shadows on the other part, which just makes it a little bit more difficult for you. And you don't want to have to deal with that. So diffuse light, soft light for macro photography is sometimes going to be your best friend. I've already got samples. So one of our callers has sent me sample photographs that they're doing during the workshop. Talk about class participation.
I love that.
I'm telling you, am I right? Don't worry, everybody gets an A here. This is Lake Wobegon, you're fine. But I do appreciate getting those cool pictures. And let's do some macro photography. Right here. Once again, I just got to set my phone up to feel like cooperating and doing some macro and some sharing. All right, cool. Back to the camera. So, you know, there's our regular view, right? There's our little cactus. If I zoom in, nice bonus here. We talk about looking for interesting patterns in nature. That's a pretty interesting pattern right there. There's another interesting pattern right there. But now, right, let's add the macro lens. So I'm going to clip it on. You do have to look through the lens and make sure it lines up with your camera lens, but don't stress out about it. It's fine. All is well. Okay, so now so this $43 lens is not autofocus. Your camera on your phone, it's going to automatically focus, but you will discover that you are the focus often. You've got to be moving back and forth to get sharp focus. So with macro, you're going to do a lot of stalking and getting really close, and then try and tap the screen to set focus. But honestly, the depth of field with some of these lenses is so shallow. And by that, I mean that the part that can be in focus is a very narrow area. You're going, hope I'm not making you motion sick, you're going to have to move back and forth. And you're going to have to get up and move around, friends. But it's worth it. Some folks who took the survey asked about insect photography, macro photography, insect photography. They're going to go hand in hand, right? Especially if you're finding an insect that is repeatedly returning to the same place, then you're going to set your phone up and you're going to leave it there until that bee comes back to that flower. So go sit in your front yard and just track those 1 or 2 bees and watch how they're going to come back on a route, right? They're like your Amazon driver. They're coming back to pick up more pollen. And so it's pretty predictable that that will happen again. And I'm going to offer you a tool in a second that can make that waiting time more pleasant for you. But before I do that, I want to talk about another investment that you might want to make. And there it is. You're going to go to the dollar store and you're going to get a misting bottle. Or you could come to Sloat Garden Center.
We have them.
Where Sloat Garden Center has a full selection of misting bottles. Why are you doing this? I am so glad you asked. That's fantastic. So I'm going to go up again. So we want to take a picture of Bob Ross. I don't know what's happening there, Bob. You need to have that checked. But now, if I missed it a little bit, that's not that thrilling. Sorry, Bob. Let's go to our succulent friend, right? Okay, so I'm going to get in here and let me get a shot and try to focus. Boom. Now I'll miss our little succulent friend. Right?
Yeah.
So that just got a whole lot more interesting by just adding some mist, right? So you could awkwardly carry one around with you. I don't know if the water police, for those of you in California, are going to get mad at us for misting, but you could say that you are performing your 3 times a week watering that you're allowed to do. But misting almost any plant is just going to make it a little bit more interesting as far as the shot. So let me get one more here. This is kind of another classic. Jenny, wait, this is a jacaranda, right?
Yes.
I'm learning, people. I'm learning. Plus, it's basically you're bringing the rain and the mist with you. These kind of plants are cool because they're going to get little water droplets forming off the end. And I'm not timing it right to get one. But you see my point, friends, that if I misted this and I was already set up to capture that shot, that would have really helped to get a water drop. And I think I've got some examples to share with you in our slideshow. Let me stop my share for a second. So what I talked about was something that would make this waiting, whether it's the water drop or the insect to come by, something that would make your life a whole lot easier. And it's a tripod, friends. Photographers do have kind of an issue with buying too much gear. So like I said, I'm not sitting here telling you, oh no, you have to go buy more. But having a tripod that will hold your smartphone is useful, especially with macro and insect photography, because you can put your phone in the holder, right? Goes right there where my hand is. You get that phone nice and tight in there, and then you can position it where you want it, and then wait for the insect or the water drop to come by and do its thing. You're not sitting there holding the phone and hoping that you can hold it steady enough. Get that focus preset and then just wait for the insect to come by. You can also buy Bluetooth triggers that will remotely fire your phone. If you have a companion watch, I hope that Apple lets me say companion watch, then you can also use that to trigger your phone. But having a tripod like this is really helpful. And this is one of the things that I almost always carry with me. One public service note that I've offered to many high school students, and some have even listened, very exciting. No matter how good you think the smartphone holder is, I beg you, do not walk around carrying your phone in it, or in my case, walking down the hallways of the high school, swinging it merrily, because sometimes your phone flies out and that creates some sadness for you. So you heard me say it, friends, use the mount, but don't carry it around in it, because that's just not working. And occasionally the phone does fly out. So I wanted to offer that public service message. I have, in the document I give you, I've got a couple different links to some tripods. If this does interest you, this one that I've got here is made by Joby. It will hold a larger camera like a DSLR. I also have a link to one that is smartphone specific, which is totally cool, costs less, it's lighter and smaller. But then if you also wanted to put a larger camera on it, the camera will droop. So buyer beware, choose wisely. All right, what else have we got? Any other questions rolling in? Because I'm going to keep talking unless you start asking more questions, people.
There is a few, and I think this is a phone, like phone tech. So
for sure.
One person says their portrait says no person detected, and will do portrait with their flowers.
That's rude. Not you, caller, but I'm disappointed that the phone is doing that to us. I wonder, and I'm thinking if there is a way to override, and I'm gonna look it up right now, friends. So I'm looking that up because I'm curious too. What else have we got?
Just a side note, the f-stop is not on the iPhone 8, sadly.
Yeah.
I imagine this is coming up, but are you gonna go over cropping a photo?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am. So, yeah, that is, I hear you about the iPhone 8, and yeah, I mean, we know that our friends at Apple love to introduce new options for us, which is great. And sometimes that is an option that then starts to, shall we say, in the language of Apple, inspire us to upgrade. But I don't like to put people in a position of doing that. You can take amazing photos with an 8, with a 6, but you are not always going to have those features. However, we can look for third-party apps that will let you do some similar softening of the background of an image. And that transitions me nicely to, with 11 minutes to go, let's do some editing, okay, friends?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that even Instagram, there's like a vignette filter.
Yep.
That you could put on, and that would be like the f-stop, and that would blur that.
Yeah. No, that is for sure. Let me go, while we're chatting here, I'm gonna find a picture that we took today. And yeah, let's do this one, and let's do some editing. And I'm gonna bring you into my phone view in just a second, I promise you. And I really love these questions, thank you. I am a high school teacher, I might have mentioned that, and sometimes my classes weren't exactly talkative, so I'm loving these questions, Jenny, that are coming in. I appreciate it because, yeah, sometimes it got a little lonely there in high school Zoom world. Not a criticism, just an observation. All right, let's do some editing. So I'm going to edit in an app that is available from Adobe, and it's called Lightroom. It is, as with so many apps, it is free to, it's free to start using. Not free, excuse me, it's not free to start using. It's free to use, but there are some features that are locked out unless you pay Adobe their monthly subscription. And I'll tell you right now what those features are so that you don't feel like I'm misleading you at all, because that's not my style. So if you look where I'm sliding across the bottom, I'm going to slide all the way. So I see a button labeled selective. Selective editing is only available. It's one of the features that's only available if you pay our friends at Adobe a subscription fee. What selective editing, what you miss if you use the free version is that you can't just edit a portion. You're editing either the entire picture or none at all if you use the non-subscription version. But I wanted to offer that to you right away. So let's start with cropping, right? So I'm going to tap on crop, and let's get this ready for Instagram. And look, as I crop around, do you see, you can't see I'm holding my finger down, but I promise I am. And there the rule of thirds lines appear. That's awfully thoughtful. But we can change the size to whatever we want. I'm going to roll with this one here, and we'll get our little sort of rule of thirds up there, and I'll tap that. There's almost always in all of these apps, right? There's an auto button. And there I push the auto button. Not a whole lot happens. Sometimes it's really dramatic, sometimes it's not, and that's all okay. I'm going to go to the unsung hero of editing. And if you can find this in your particular favorite app, oh, I hope you'll try it. I'm going to go, in this case, to effects, which is at the bottom. And I'm going to look for this slider that is called dehaze. And I'm going to move that slider over. Now, what it's doing is it's removing some of the haziness from the backlighting. So if I add extra haze, if you want more atmosphere, yeah, there you got it, right? But I'm going to go the other direction and remove a little. It is making the photo a little bit darker, but it's also allowing more of these colors to pop out, which I really like. And then I'm going to add a little clarity and a little texture. These are all, you choose what you want to do, right? This is your photo. You'll watch a lot of tutorials if you're into watching tutorials about Adobe products, and people will tell you to set a specific number. Like, oh, you have to make sure that you set this one to number 17. Well, unless I have their picture, number 17 doesn't matter at all, right? So really use and trust your eye, my friends. I believe in you. You should too. With all of these, though, it's usually a little bit goes a long way. So if I go way textured, you'll see this photo gets a little bit overdone and in the language of some editors, almost crispy looking. If that's a look you like, live your dreams, my friends. Jenny mentioned vignetting, which is also on this same slider here. So what vignette does is it will put either a lighter or darker edge around the image. It kind of feels like you're getting tunnel vision, but in a good way. So see the vignette, I'm going to slide it all the way over, right? Kind of reminds you of back in the day at the Olin Mills studio. Remember when you guys go to the mall and get your picture taken? Little vignette, right? And if you slide it to the left, you're getting dark, or slide to the right and get a lighter vignette. Some photographers that are doing this kind of work will put a vignette on every single picture. And you can see why, because it calls attention to the subject. And if you really enjoy vignetting, then you can change how feathered, that's a very feathered vignette, or it can have a hard edge like that. You can change the shape of the vignette. The world is your oyster, my friends. Live your dreams. I'm going to go to one last thing in editing because I could stay here forever, but we got to go soon, sadly. And I'm going to go to color. what a controversial subject in the world of photography, and especially I think with social media. My work on Instagram, what I've noticed is that if I use the slider that is vibrance, I'm not done yet, but thanks. Somebody's honking at me. If I really push saturation and vibrance way over, I get more likes. So if I'm feeling like I need more likes that day, sometimes I will oversaturate my image. And then I feel better when I get lots of likes. The funny thing about this is this same picture, if you print it and you put it on your wall, it's sometimes too much. The saturation in a print, when you're looking at an 8x10 or larger, it's actually too much. So I did get some questions about how do you work with social media. Extra saturation, extra vibrant color really does seem to make the Instagram likes flow. Look at your range of pictures. You're going to see that people like the bright, vibrant hues of your sunset shots often, or your beautiful pictures that you take of flowers if you do add more vibrance to them. So vibrance and saturation can be your friends. Just to understand that if you print the same photo, it may come out looking less appealing. If you don't like these individual adjustments, check out whatever app you're using. Just like Instagram has filters, Lightroom has what are called profiles. Those are at the bottom. And I can just go through and cruise through the profiles and let the phone do the work for me. And there you are, my friends. We've got 3 minutes to go. Are there any questions floating out there? Because that was a lot.
I know, it's so awesome. I'm getting texts and messages, and a lot of people have really enjoyed the content. And, well, what's the size you use for Instagram?
Are we talking, sorry, caller, are we talking about like, is it a square or is it differently proportioned?
No, I'm just asking for the one that you just did.
Yeah.
In Lightroom, and you said this is for the size for Instagram.
Right.
What was that size? So
that was in Lightroom and lots of other editing apps. It's a 1:1 crop.
Okay.
I don't know if you, my phone may have had a moment, so you're not seeing the options, but whether it's Lightroom or a different app, they'll give you different choices of ratios. We're back to math class, and 1:1 is their way of saying a square, which is how Instagram wants to crop all our photos. But you're probably like me, you want to crop your own photo. You don't want to have Instagram do it for you. So, but look at cropping, play with cropping. And I want to leave you with this, and then I'll show you the resource list that I'll provide you, and then you all can go out and take pictures. But if you take it, you go out and take pictures, hopefully you're inspired to go do it this evening, go take some pictures. If none of them are thrilling you, this is what our art teachers hopefully always told us: walk away for a day, come back. Your Instagram people will have to wait for your magic, right? And then I want you to come back and take a second look at them, because I find like I'll shoot pictures and they're just like, that session didn't work out at all. I go home, I'm a little sad. The next day I start to play with them. The next day I maybe crop a little bit, get rid of some of the distractions, focus in even more. And then I'll suddenly see something that right after I took the pictures wasn't even there. So I come away a lot happier. So do yourself that favor, be patient with yourself. If you're not finding magic happening right away, that's totally okay. Go take more pictures, like we said at the beginning, and give yourself 24 hours before you say, oh, those didn't come out at all. I'm so sad. That's my vote. So I am going to put a link in chat. And this is going to be a big, long Google Docs link. Sorry about that. Talk to Google. I didn't go and do any shortening for you of that, and I apologize. So what we've got going here, I put together a pretty short list of resources for you. And I bet as I drive home tonight, I'm going to think of more, and it's a Google Doc. So I'll just add them, right? But in our closing seconds, I listed off a lot of popular apps. All of these are free or free to use some of the features. Snapseed is super popular. I beg you to play with that one as well. It's really fun. Adobe Lightroom is the tool that we use today. This is Adobe Lightroom Mobile, not the desktop version. And then there are two really fun free apps also by Adobe where you don't have to pay for anything, Photoshop Mix and Photoshop Fix. If you're a Photoshop user, explore these because they have a lot of the same features that are in Photoshop, but you can do it on your phone and it doesn't cost you anything. And then the last one that I hadn't heard of until about a year or two ago is Grid Post. What Grid Post lets you do, if you take a panoramic photo of your garden and you want to put it on Instagram, and you've seen on Instagram how people break up a panoramic into 3 individual square pictures, this app, which is free, does that breaking up into as many little square images as you want, and then makes it what on Instagram they call a carousel that you can just scroll through. And Jenny, you've seen my stuff. Some of our wonderful viewers have seen my panoramic work that I put on Instagram. Check it out at RPM Teacher, and you'll see that, oh, that's how that works, and it's free. Then I put a list of some of the products that we talked about. This one, the Zenvo Pro Lens Kit for iPhone, is that $43 macro lens that I used. And for the price, I'm happy with it. I've tried less expensive ones. Save your pennies, friends. Check on your allowance. Get one, spend the 43 bucks. If you want something that is better quality than this, you could definitely explore the next one that I've listed, which is the Moment macro lens. But this one is over $100. And in order for it to attach to your phone, you have to buy a special case for your phone that is over 50 bucks. So if that's an investment you want to make, right on, feel free. I'm happy with my $43 version because I like my case. And then useful accessories, I listed 2 of the smartphone and DSLR tripods by a company called Joby that have these wonderful bendy legs that will attach to different railings and tree branches, and it's really easy to level it. There are lower cost counterfeit versions that I bought as well. They do tend to break sooner, but they cost less. So you choose. I've used both. But I think you really enjoy a tripod. And then I didn't have this for show and tell, but I'll do it right now. This is when we talked about a diffuser for light. This is a small, I think it's about 5 or 7 inches across. It's basically a fabric circle, and you can choose different reflectors that are built into it, or you can peel those off, and what you're left with is a circle of translucent white fabric, and you can hold that above your subject and the light will be a little bit more diffuse for you. It folds up like one of those things. It's always really hard to fold up, and then it pops open again into a circle. So it folds really small. Keep it in your camera bag, keep it in your car. It's $12.99. Full disclosure, I will receive a small Amazon commission on some of the items listed above if you follow these links. If you don't want to do that, then you can just type it in, and that's totally cool too. And that is my story. I'm going to hand it back to Jenny here at Sloat Garden Center.
Oh my gosh, so fun. This is really cool. I learned a lot, and I'm definitely inspired. I'm gonna go get that macro lens for sure. And yeah, and I tripod too, probably. So thank you for that. And I forgot to mention that this is being recorded, and the recording will be available on Sloat's website on Friday. And Friday, what day is that? The 30th? Whoa, it's almost August. Anyway, so the recording will be available on Friday. And what we'll do is we'll also put a copy of this resource handout that Rod put in the chat. We'll put a copy of that underneath the recording too. So the two things are together. What's nice about the recordings is, you can go back and rewind and watch again and review and whatnot. And so I think the recordings are super, super fun, and, you're able to sort of go back everything, or go back over everything. Anyway, Rod, I had so much fun. This was super great. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for joining us. I hope to see you at the next class, the lemon berry scone class, and that will be on August 18th. And then again, digging into fall gardening with preparing your fall edible gardening. That will be August 21st at 10 a.m. So thanks very much. Everybody have a wonderful Wednesday evening, and go have fun in your garden. Take some pictures, share your pictures with us. I'd love to see it. So thank you.
Thanks, friends. Have a great evening. Take care.